Hey, everybody, welcome to Sea of Tranquility. I am your host, Jamie Laszlo. What? I know, it's crazy. But before we get into all of that, this is, by the way, the Review Crew, a new show here on Sea of Tranquility, where we talk about new music, new releases, and some old music that might be re released on new deluxe editions or box sets or something like that. But we're going to focus on new releases, whether it's old or new. And then we're going to review it for you. Let me introduce you to this week's crew. We got Scotland represented twice. We got Mr. Stephen Reed from Scotland. We got Mr. David Gallagher from Scotland. You guys ever meet up for a pint over there in
No,
Scotland?
but this is half the country represented right
Is it?
here.
Yeah, we've got both coasts here, so it's
Yeah,
Well,
kind
the
of even.
four of you should join up and have a pint.
it's just the women folk left. That's all there are.
We got Mr. Rick Labonte, the rock star up there in Ontario, Canada. We got George Lamie, who's going to be my right-hand man and my partner for this show. He's in Chicago. And anytime I'm slacking, George, I want you to kick me in the ass and get me going
Chicago
on this
style.
thing. So that's what you're here for.
That's the Chicago way.
And let's just address the elephant in the room, or the lack of elephant in the room. Yes, there is no Pete Pardo here.
Yeah, where is he?
I know, and it's weird. Trust us, it's weird for you. It's weird for us. And I want you guys to know that we know it's weird. So I thought of something. I wanted to do something to make this transition easier on everybody, us, you. So I wanted the presence of Pete to be here without actual Pete being here. So what I came up with was Puppet Pete. So we have Puppet Pete here is going to look over us and give you the sense that Pete's here, right, Pete? Don't fuck up my show. If I lose one subscriber, I shut this shit show down.
Jesus.
Okay, Pete. Puppet Pete, he looks serious too, doesn't he?
Yeah,
I know.
getting it.
And
Yeah,
he's always showing
serious
off a
as
new
shit.
shirt. He's always showing off a new shirt. I like that deep purple
Yeah,
shirt.
he's got just a simple deep purple shirt going. So Puppet Pete's gonna sit here behind us, and just for this show, and
I'm looking forward to Puppet Pete being joined by Puppet Popoff.
And
I'm
he's
just
gonna
really
sit
glad,
right
Jamie,
there.
that because you worry this might be weird for people, that you've made sure it's not weird now. This is definitely
Yeah.
They just
weird.
got weirder.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
is this weird now?
You might want to review something. Like, you want to review my hand being up your ass? 10 out of 10, you
That's
say?
a whole different video.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, that's it. The first one without demonetized. Perfect.
All right. All right. Enough of that nonsense. Let's get to the reviews with the crew. Stephen Reed, what did you bring us today?
Okay, well, I thought that some people might miss The Curse of the Collector. So I'm going to start with a new release. This old music. Okay, so I'm going to start with 20 Years. This is 10cc. This is the box set that contains all their albums. So it's 1972 to 1992, apart from one, because they don't even like that one, I think. It doesn't contain 1995's Mirror, Mirror. Okay, so you have, across this ginormous thing, 14 CDs. Okay, so you have got the live albums across two. It doesn't need to be, but it was originally, so that's what they've done. And you have got two discs that are all kind of non-album tracks. There's alternate single mixes, there's B-sides, there's all that kind of stuff. Now I got this for £70 from a shed that burns, okay? Plus a little bit of postage, obviously, because they don't just send it out for free. That's not bad. That's about a fiver a disc, so that's quite good value. Inside, and it does open just a little too easily. Pick it up correctly, because otherwise they all hit the floor. Okay, the album's nicely pictured on the back here. You get this fancy fangled lot, and depending on whether it was originally released as a single sleeve or a gatefold sleeve, you get all these nice reproductions of exactly the way that they appeared when they were released, and it is absolutely beautiful. Okay, there's also a booklet in here, as you would expect. It's spangly and it's shiny and all that kind of stuff. There's a 10,000 word essay, okay? A lot of reading, a lot of homework to be done here, and nice little breakdown of what's on all the albums. What it lacks, unusually, is a single picture of the band. Okay, that in itself is quite unusual in one of these little things, but who knows? I don't think they all like each other these days, but there we go. So, Demon Music, which is who it's through, they've stated that the set has been newly mastered in its entirety to ensure that the EQ levels are even throughout the box set. And I like that. There's nothing worse than putting on a disc halfway through a box set and the volume drops away and you're like, so that's a nice touch. And they've also they've stated, I haven't got all the CD versions of this from the past, so I can't say for certain, that this is the best that these albums have sounded whilst they've been released on CD across the last 35 years. Now, this is all the good news, because there is a little bit of bad news too, because disc 14, he says if he can find the correct one, there we are. So this is one of the discs that's got all these, or half of the fancy fangled music that's not on the albums. Well, track 5 skips. By skip, I mean it goes and we'll never move on. Okay, so that's not a good thing. And also, track 3 is not, as it states, Le Nouveau Riche. It is actually Action Man in Motown suit. Again, that's also on a separate CD. So they've made a bit of an arse of it, but it would appear they are aware there are supposedly replacement discs coming out. How we get all of these, I don't know yet. I've emailed Burning Shed and asked them. They haven't got back to me yet. I did only email them at the weekend, to be fair, when I finally got round to this disc and thought, that's not right. So we'll see. There's a bit of an arse up. And that is a shame, because the actual contents are fantastic. Now, it's worth mentioning that none of this is exclusive. All of this stuff has been released before. None of the tracks, even on the 2 discs at the end, are appearing for the first time. There's not a huge amount out there, I don't think, that they could even have done that with, to be fair. So it's not like they're missing out. And it's also worth mentioning that whilst it feels like we've got everything, minus the last album, there are 1 or 2 kind of live versions and different single edits that for some reason are not on here. And that is a little bit disappointing. However, you do have all the studio albums through this point. So 10cc, sheet music, the original soundtrack, How Dare You, Deceptive Bends, Live and Let Live across 2 discs, Bloody Tourists, Look Here, 10 out of 10, Windows in the Jungle, Meanwhile, and then some of the bits we missed, which is the non-album stuff, and then more bits that we missed. And I have to say that the sound is top notch. I've really enjoyed these. Now, I actually got this as a very late Christmas present. It was bought for me before Christmas, but it's only been released in the last couple of weeks. Because I went to see the current version of 10cc, which only has 1 original member left, and came home and said how much I'd enjoyed it, and the fact that I only had 1 other album on CD. So this is, to some extent, a journey into the unknown for me. And what I've discovered is there's some phenomenal stuff on here, so a lot of which I knew, because there's a lot of singles that were big hits over here anyway, and some of it hasn't aged quite so well. So it's an interesting journey to go through these albums and kind of discover what I like and what I don't like so much. I can't really review every album song for song and all that kind of stuff at this stage. It's way too early for that. But other than those glitches, which it does look like they are going to be fixed, this is really impressive. I've really enjoyed it. My guess is that the price will come down, because these things tend to, but even at a £5 a disc across a box set with this many CDs, it's pretty decent value, I would suggest. And I'm impressed. I like it. So if I was going to give this a score, taking out the issues that are there that will be fixed, it would appear this is a solid 4 out of 5, I would suggest. I would like to see a few images of the band and various things like that in the booklet. That's been a bit churlish, because ultimately it's about the music. The music is all there, and it sounds pretty fantastic. So that is my first review on the show. This is 10cc, 20 years, 1972 to 1992. Okay.
Hopefully, no more skipping on the rest of it.
No, that is the only one. That's the only one. And it's across the whole first batch, it would appear. It's not just mine. So there is an issue with manufacture. So if you've bought a first set and you haven't got all the way through the discs yet, because that is the last disc, check it out, have a listen. My guess would be that that will be an issue. It seems to be quite difficult to find already. So whether they've kind of pulled that batch or what, I'm not sure. I would hope that would be the case, to be fair, because it's only going to cause them issues if they don't, I would guess. But yeah, as I say, it's been acknowledged, and it does seem some people have had responses that picked up on it before I did, before I went and Googled and kind of seen what the story was with it. So they do appear to be admitting that, yes, they've made an error and they will fix it, and that they'll also sort the missing track out too. So it's a problem, but it'll be fixed. And that's always a good thing. Okay, album number 2 is pretty much brand new. Okay, this is The Pineapple Thief. Okay, and this is It Leads to This. Here we are, look, there we go. Okay, so this is the band that's led by Bruce Seward. The rest of the guys in the band are John Sykes, not that John Sykes, on bass and backing vocals, Steve Kitch on keyboards, and of course, Gavin Harrison on drums and percussion. This is his 3rd full album with the band. He's been associated with them longer than that. I do believe at certain points in the US they even go out as The Pineapple Thief featuring Gavin Harrison. Not many drummers get that billing, I have to say, but there you go. And they've also got a guy called Berrien Matthews who plays additional guitars and does backing vocals on the album too. Okay, so this is an interesting band for me because the Pineapple Thief have always been billed as a prog rock band. And I suppose they kind of started out that way. I would suggest that that's not really the case. I mean, they do create intricate music that is complex and it's involved, and you probably struggle to take most of it in on the first listen. But if you're looking for kind of 25-minute sprawling epics and those kind of guitar keyboard battles that denote prog, that's not what you're going to find from this band. This is they're lumped together with, and I kind of take issue with this and I kind of don't, say Porcupine Tree or Radiohead, Anathema. It's that kind of melancholy sort of mood and tone. Tends to be a little bit kind of slower, and it's kind of music that's going to grow. But they do have their own distinct sound. So whilst I would liken them to those bands, or other people certainly do, and I don't like all of those bands, I like some of them a lot, and some of them not much at all. So it's an odd little kind of genre to look at in that sense. This album, I think, is very melancholy. There are a couple of songs where things really kind of pick up, but it's more about pensive guitars, atmospheric keys, and Gavin's intricate drumming, which I think, I mean, it's really tight. I mean, you would expect it. The guy's a master.
Mm-hmm.
It's really intense. It's kind of understated in a way that I hadn't anticipated. It's really up front in the mix. He really is, no pun intended, a driving force in this band. Now, they're a slow grow band. I never find it, I put on Pineapple Thief album, I go, that's it, I've got it all now. So I'm about 7 or 8 listens in, had it for a week and a bit. And I've got to admit, I'm kind of struggling with this one a little bit. I've got all the stuff, and I tend to go out and buy these ginormous things that have got all these discs and all this sort of stuff. And fine, after a couple of weeks, I go, I'm getting it now. I'm not really getting this yet. I find that it's a little, for my taste, one note. Although they're always kind of melancholy and downbeat, for want of a better turn of phrase, including the lyrics. There's usually one song or 2 songs where you go, there we go, there's the release, there's the break, that's my way in. And I'm struggling to find that song that does that. Everything's really short. They're all kind of 3-4 minutes. The band are fantastic, but I'm just not falling in love with it. Now, this set here has 4 discs. Okay, there's 2 CDs, there's a Blu-ray and a DVD. So CD 2, and please excuse my pronunciation, is called Y Aquí Estamos. And the lineup for that, oddly enough, is Bruce Seward on guitar and vocals, Gavin Harrison on drums and percussion, and Antoine Fafard on guitars. Okay? Now, he also arranged all of the music on this disc. So it raised a question for me of, when is a band not a band? It would appear that like guys in this band are interchangeable to some extent. I mean, I know it was a lockdown album, but this one here by Bruce Seward, the Seward Sessions, only features him, but it's still got the band name on the front. I think that in itself alludes to what the band is. Interestingly, I have found that disc much more interesting. Fafard is a kind of renowned jazz rock guitarist, and his contributions here dominate the whole thing. It's a fascinating kind of process to listen to a brand new album, not all the songs I may add, but nearly all the songs be reinterpreted on the same release in a different way with somebody else almost leading it. I find there's more colour in these tracks. I find there's more dynamics in these tracks. So it's an interesting thing. Whether I'll get further down the line and feel that that's maybe not the case, I'm not sure. But at the moment, I prefer the bonus disc. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm given this ginormous thing that's got fantastic artwork and things inside. This figure here ages as you go through the book, if I can find images of them as they grow older. It's all very clever, it's all very nice. And you get at the front the 4 discs, okay, with these horrible foam things that eventually always feel like they're going to fall off, and they have on some of mine that I've bought over the years. Now, the issue I've got with this is that the album itself, and I don't mind the fashion for albums being a bit shorter than they have been, but the album itself is just over 40 minutes. The bonus disc is just over 30 minutes. So in total, between these 2 discs, you only have 74 minutes worth of music, okay?
Yep.
Now, that would be okay because you've got a Blu-ray and a DVD, but what they offer is lots and lots of different ways to listen to that same music. All the 5.1 and the surround and the Dolby mixes and all the stuff, okay? And if that's your stuff, if Atmos is your thing, this is the set to get, and all those kind of things. But across 4 discs here, I have less than 80 minutes of actual distinctly different songs.
That fits on one CD.
Technically, it would fit on one CD. Now, you wouldn't want the
I was going to
2
mention that.
on one because you do have an album and you have reinterpretations. It's nice to have them separate because they don't tell you the same message. They feel very different.
They're the same songs.
But they're the same, and well, nearly all of them are the same songs. But
Yeah, exactly, I understand.
yeah, in essence, Jamie, yeah, they fit on one CD. So across 4 discs, I've got enough music that would fit on one CD. And these boys don't arrive cheap. So I must admit that this is the one where I maybe jump off that kind of wagon, to be honest with you, because I've a few issues. Interestingly, this one actually turned up with a second disc 1, a second main album. For anyone that likes the Pineapple Thief, it actually came with a little message on the front that says, in case something here is missing, which is a reference to one of their old album titles as well. So some sets must have gone out without disc 1, without the actual album in it. But they've picked it up early because this arrived with the set that I've got here. So
Wow.
for me, this early on, and it is early on, if I was writing a review for the Pineapple Thief, I would sit on the album for about a month before I would actually write anything down, because I find it really difficult to give a definitive love it or loathe it at this stage. It's a 3 out of 5 for me at the moment. I would definitely go to previous albums over this one with where I am with it at the moment. And I am absolutely intrigued to see what Rick thinks, because who knows, the opinions might be completely different. So over to you, Rick.
What would you rate it though if you added a 5?
Yeah, 3 out of 5 is where I
3
would
out
be
of 5?
at the moment. So it's not awful.
No, I concur with that. Honestly, I think you nailed it on the head as you describe it. It is melancholy, and it's not prog and being adventurous that way. It's more about dynamic, creating atmosphere. It sets the mood like the English rain. It's like, you don't see the sunset, you don't see the sunrise, but it got that mood, right? And it's not something you play for every given time, right? It's a certain album you played, like sometimes Pink Floyd. It's not necessarily, unless it's the pop songs like, Dark Side of the Moon, but it's not necessarily a party record. It's something for a solitude moment, or just one of those days when you just want to hear that kind of music. It's just, and I got to be honest, how I got onto this band in the first place is a couple of events. One, meaning that 2018, I started watching Sea of Tranquility, and he was highlighting this album. And this is the rabbit hole I went, which was amazing. And since I don't think they ever topped this yet. I mean, there's some good ones and great ones beforehand. You know, I enjoyed it and I understand. And I even like some of the albums afterwards. But this one, it's kind of like a carbon copy of something pretty simple that they've done. And it's nothing like ground shaking new. So it's very important that we talk about that in that aspect. As far as a rating, I think you did it right. I don't think it made me. It's not one I would get people on to get into the Pineapple Thief. You know, I would give them a different album. But if you're already a fan, then you still want to hear something new. It's still worth listening to something new. But I only got the one disc, and that's all I need. I wouldn't do what you did. Okay. Look like I got somebody at the door here. You guys hear the dog? The dogs are doomed to holler more. Just give me a second.
Somebody else wants to get on the show.
It's going well, Jamie.
I know it's going great. Puppet Pete's getting
That's Pete at the door.
restless.
That's Pete at the door. I'll ruin this.
Intermission time.
I know.
Ladies coming around with ice creams in a minute. Let's bitch about him while he's gone.
It's Amazon. They're dropping off some Jimmy Page for him.
It's all that stuff you ordered for the next Curse of the
Pineapple
Collector.
Thief album because it's better.
Right. Take your time, Rick. We're not doing a show or anything.
I'm just glad to hear, Stephen, that you're sitting on the pineapple for the next month or so. That sounds like a comfortable position to be in, sitting
Absolutely.
on the pineapple.
I never listened to
Why would you
Pineapple
not?
Thief.
You ask nicely.
You guys aren't selling it.
Yeah.
All right, Rick.
Yes, somebody actually needed directions. Come knocking on my door of all places.
Go
Anyway,
away is the best direction.
I even had to
Google
arrange it for people to get away from the house so that wouldn't happen. So my next 2024 release it's something that we've heard before 1,000 times. So I'm catching my breath here. Paul McCartney, Band on the Run with the Wing. And this is the photograph they used on the inside of the record. I know it's a different show, but the curse is still real. I have the original, remastered, had it on cassette, had it on vinyl. But I still had to get it. And is it the last Paul McCartney album I'm going to get? Highly likely. I'm not. I'll still get more. So the first disc, the remastered, sounds really good. Got the posters and everything inside it. More, instead of a booklet, kind of a posters of all the Polaroid moments that Linda took. The lyrics are on there. You get that in the remaster, but it's not a good print. It was always black and white. You can actually read it a lot better. And you don't need the magnifying glasses. And then put a bonus disc. And it's really cool the way they put it into a certain package because it's called the undub disc, meaning it's everything off the floor without all the embellishment that they put on there. The dub on the vocal, adding another keyboard line or lead guitar solo, basically comes off the floor. Now, are you guys gonna listen to that many times? It's not an expensive package in the first place, but I enjoy it. It's just like every once in a while, I'll grab the Beatles anthology just because I've heard those songs so many times, hearing it in a different fashion or a remix. It's kind of nice. It's something new, right? And with the Band on the Run, you actually hear them laying the foundation like a live rehearsal room, and it sounds really good. So I don't mind having that as a fan, but is it something you need to have? No. Unless you're a crazy fan like me, you're going to get it. And the curse is real, so that's why. But I'm glad I got it. And now, because you mentioned Pineapple Thief, I do have another release, but it's not 2024, it's late 2023. And I happen to put it on Jamie's Let's Get Physical webpage because it just came in. It's new to me, but that doesn't mean it's new right away. And Pete said, oh, it sounds like we got something going on the new show. And I said, well, since he mentioned Pineapple Thieves, I'll talk about this one. Now, the Blue Traveler is a band I've been following for a while. In fact, the first time I seen them was at Woodstock '94. not the 99 when everything went to hell. It's the last one, but it was still corporate sponsored by Pepsi Cola. But it was like all these wonderful bands, old and new. And that Friday night was a wonderful night for me to travel. I'm only like 24 years old, going out there all the way from Ontario to New York State to see this concert. And on the Friday night, there was amazing bands I've never seen before, and I've been a fan ever since. Blue Traveler is one of them, but King's X was another. Collective Soul, Live, quite a few bands that I followed since then, but Metallica was there, obviously Aerosmith, great band. So, but when Blue Traveler, I started following them, and I thought from the title blues, you're gonna get a lot of blues, but it really ain't. It's a jam band, and it's the band that just knows how to extend songs and improvise, and they certainly got this formula, and I really like, and I followed them quite a bit, and went up to 2018. It was their last original album. It was celebrating 30 years. I got to meet the guy, the drummer, John Popper, threw a harmonica right in front of him to me on stage, the E flat, and I treasure that forever. And they didn't put no original music out for since 2018 until 2021. They put out this album called the Blue Travelers Blues, which is interesting because for the first time they dedicated a whole album on blues, because they've been invited to blues festivals and not necessarily play blues. They play their own thing. And I guess because he's a harmonica player, people assume that. But listen to the title, Blue Traveler. I mean, they travel with that, format. But this one, they went back and did an album of covers. Now, I'm not a fan about bands that do a bunch of covers, but to hear the Blue Traveler do blues, I think it's kind of fitting that it's overdue to hear them do that, especially with a harmonica. And it's a pretty good album. It has 10 songs, but they bring a lot of guests, a lot of, big shot to be a guest singer or guest guitar player all throughout the album. And it's a lot of popular songs from Tore Down, Ball and Chain, Sitting on Top of the World with like Warren Haynes, for example, Need Your Love So Bad, Peter Green tune, Roadhouse Blues, everybody does that. Call Me the Breeze, Trouble on My Mind, stuff like that. It's pretty decent. It got nominated for 3 Grammys. So what did they do? They kind of did the same thing in the late 2023, put out an album called Blue Traveler's Soul, where they go on the R&B camp and in the soul music and doing their cover to it. But it's not consistent because they got a Beatles track in there. Beatles, they do soul music for covers, but We Can Work It Out. Doesn't fit the bill, but it does sound good, and they put an R&B pep to it. But for the most part, it has some good, good versions of these songs. I don't think they blow away the original. I mean, When a Man Loved a Woman, that's a classic song. They do a pretty good version of it. But again, unless you're a fan and you had to be a completist to get it, is it a must? Not necessary, because it's not original music, and I do respect more originals. But the fact that I'm a collector, and I did enjoy it, and it's a real quick passing time. I mean, it's like 45 minutes, easy gone, and you're pretty entertained, because these songs are very short. They kept them short, even if they're not exactly like the artist. It's still, they didn't extend these songs like they were known for to do live. So for this, I give it a 3.5 because the quality of the sound is amazing. It's just that because it's nothing original, I'm not giving a high five, nothing like the Blue Travelers 4 or the Bridge album, for example. Those songs, every song is great. But this one is just a good selection of songs that they want to show their personality doing these tunes. And it is still a Blue Traveler version. It's not like they're covering faithfully. They're doing it their way.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. Blues Traveler. Love those first 4 or 5 albums. 4 and a half.
Me too.
That 5th album, what was it called? What was it called? Something through
Straight On Through the Night?
Yeah, Straight On Through the Night or something. It's okay. And then they started losing me a bit.
Yeah, I like the one after that and the second one. But yeah, they started being very similar, almost a carbon copy of these records. It wasn't like anything brand new. That's what I had a problem with this one, is that I enjoy it. It's definitely Pineapple Thieves. I recognize the personalities, but I didn't hear anything new that'll make it more memorable.
Right. Mr. Davey Gallagher, what did you
was the old bugaboo? When they got popular with Runaround and Hook, you knew that from there on it wasn't going to be as good, and it wasn't. All the albums after you get popular tend to be less.
And they did lose that bass player, changed the dynamic because they brought a keyboard player, and that changed the sound too. But yeah, you're right. The momentum was lost in my mind.
Travelers and Thieves is my favorite.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. Davey.
Okay. Good evening. Well, we'll let Rick catch his breath then after the
Yeah, indeed. By the way, I love your tweet.
marathon.
Cat in the
Thank you.
hat. Cat in
Thank you.
space.
I like yours too. I couldn't pull off the flat cap look. I look like a 1920s gangster. So I read the comments on the announcement video for this series, and one thing people seem to be excited for was music that we don't generally talk about on the channel. A chance to have that's, you know, a few things that maybe we don't cover.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not going too out of the box, perhaps, but you know, regardless. And this is something that came 2 weeks ago, and it's this dreaded phrase, the next big thing, that always fills me with fear because it's hype, it's promotion, it's PR, it's
Hype.
and it's a British band, all girl band, who are all over the place. They've been on Jules Holland's, they've been on Graham Norton, I think. They've been on all sorts of shows. They've released a new single, which is going to be the first kind of charting thing by the looks of it, and it's The Last Dinner Party. Right. So this came out again a few weeks ago. All girl lineup from public school. So they're very, you'd know it if you saw them and you heard them. They are very, very public school types. You wouldn't confuse them for coming off the council streets. So they've got a dynamic which kind of put me off at first because they're very, put it this way, they had the gig where the dress code was you have to dress like a Victorian to get in. They're lucky the girl band. That kind of shit. No, that's fucking bullshit. So again, but that's part of the PR nonsense, isn't it? Because they're not really going to enforce that if they're trying to sell out venues in 6 months or a year. That's the kind of thing you do when you're starting out to try and get a name for yourself and buzz. But when they dropped their first few singles, they were fucking bangers. They've got this great aesthetic of Kate Bush meets the Sparks. Right? There's a lot of glam in there. There's a lot of Queen in there, the 70s Queen in particular. But there's a really confessional lyric to go along with almost everything on it. Kind of Tori Amos style of almost being a little bit too honest, where it's quite uncomfortable at times. But generally speaking, having a musicality to it that kind of betrays that honesty and that intensity of the lyric. So tracks on here like the new single that rightly so is apparently going to shoot right up the charts. Nothing Matters, which is probably the best pop song on the record. Even that's a really explicit song. F-bombs galore, and I don't know how the Radio 1 guys are getting away with playing it, but they are. I heard it earlier on. Earlier tracks on. I mean, it opens with a big orchestral piece, which is quite an ambitious way for a pop band, rock band, glam band to open an album these days. But it opens with a big orchestral piece. And then it goes into things that are more familiar. So it takes the Phil Spector beat that we all know from Be My Baby, the dum, 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 and builds on that with orchestration. So the Phil Spector thing's also, the Wall of Sound's also in here as a bit of DNA as well. But then you get tracks like Beautiful Boy, which are much more intimate and much deeper. But I do have to say, there's a sense the whole time of coming from their background and knowing that they all met at a kind of drama school thing. They're kind of playing these characters a bit more than they are actually being these people. There's a sense that they probably love all the music that I've just kind of compared and referenced, but that they're doing it in a kind of quirky, over the top fashion, maybe just to get buzz and notoriety in the first place, and then develop into something a bit more themselves later on. Because this album's so lush and so over the top and a little bit Florence and the Machine in places, but not as boring as that. where you think, how much further can you possibly take that? That's the problem that Florence and the Machine did have when they tried it, or Bat for Lashes when they tried it. If you take something in that direction, you hit a brick wall. There's only so far you can take doing the orchestral wall of sound meets sad girl dynamic, and then what else are you going to do with it? It's like Adele. Every time she needs to hit record, she breaks up with a boyfriend. So what are you going to do for album 2? It doesn't really bother me at the moment because album 1 is all we have, and it's great. It's great for what it is. But there's a sense, and maybe it's intentional, of artificiality about it. Maybe that's part of it because they did something like the Victorian, you have to wear Victorian outfits to get into the gig thing. Maybe that's part of it, where they are playing these characters and the characters are going through it, and that's how they deal with it. I don't know. I don't really want to read interviews with them because I get a sense that they'd probably be really pretentious and I'd never want to listen to them again, to be honest. That's it. It reeks of that. You can practically smell it coming off them, to be honest. But Prelude to Ecstasy by the Last Dinner Party, I still think there's some really great stuff on here that is not the kind of thing we normally discuss on here, which I think quite a lot of viewers would get something from. Maybe not love it, maybe they would, but I think they'd still get something from it. What I think is a much more SOT friendly record is my second choice, where I think there's actually very few SOT tape viewers who wouldn't get something from this record, which is Slift Alien, their third record. This is stunning stuff. Right? They're a French band from Toulouse, which is in France, which makes them French. And being their third record, they've kind of experimented in the first few with being space rock, a little bit psych, a little bit this, a little bit that. And on the third record, there's a real sense on Alien that they found who they actually want to be, which is a much more grandiose without being this, without being pretentious grandiose. There's a sense that they found a way to organically do that and just do it through still being a three-piece band. So essentially, it's still just a lineup that is classic three-piece and then augmented by extra players and whatnot. I'll give them credit. I won't give the ladies credit because frankly, they've all got double-barreled names, and I'm not encouraging that sort of behaviour. Jean Fassat on guitar and vocals, Remy Fassat on bass. I'm guessing they're related. From the Toulouse Fassats, and Cagnac Flores on drums and piano. So between them, you'd think, okay, three-piece rock's going to. I probably know what that sounds like. We're going to be in for something a bit cream-like, maybe. Or, no. This is everything, everywhere, all at once. The record. There's doom on here. There's sludge on here. There's a lot of classic metal in here. There's a lot of psych on here, modern psych. There's prog on here, but it's not prog. You're not going to mistake it for 1972 Yes. You're not going to mistake it for 1972 Crimson. You might mistake some of it for 1985 Crimson with some of the weird thrack side projects because there's a kind of industrial feel to quite a few of the tracks. But this just has a massive scope with soaring vocals, very shouty vocals, but they're not growly vocals. They're not in, because I can't be doing with that. But the vocals are very manageable, but very intense at the same time. It's an album that kind of lets you take out your aggression while you're listening to it. And it never loses a sense of musicality. It's 80 minutes long. The tracks tend to be about 8 to 10 minutes each. There is only 8 tracks, even though it is 80 minutes. But they never feel like, oh God, would you hurry up already? The tracks are they're full of time signature changes. They're full of odd parts that come in, fade out. There's different ways of sounding throughout the track. So if it sounds like a more metallic guitar sound at the start with big riffs, big fuck off riffs, then eventually it turns into almost post-punk chicken scratch guitar playing at one point, and then it will maybe come full circle, or it might go somewhere else entirely. I can't recommend this highly enough for SOT. In general, it's one of those kind of Venn diagrams of if you like a little bit of all the weird subgenres that didn't used to exist of rock, but now they all have their labels on releases, all the weird subgenres of rock that you'll see. There's a little bit of all of them in the DNA of this record, but none really take over to the extent that it would alienate you if you're not a fan of, say, doom or sludge or psych, or space rock. But it's all in here. You'll hear little bits of it peeking through the corner and then running away and then coming back again 10 minutes later. It's a phenomenal record. Slift, Slift, Alien, great stuff. If this is 3.5 out of 5, with could be 1 out of 5 if I find out more about them and hate them, or it could be a 5 out of 5 if it really grows on me. But this is just a straight 5 out of 5. It's catharsis. The record, I absolutely love it. It's already in contention for album of the year material. Slift, Alien.
I've seen that cover floating around on the internet.
Yeah, I mean,
YouTube
I think
threw it on my feed.
the cover even sells it, I think, as being something that a lot of our listeners are gonna take to. So yeah. Oh, there you go.
All right. It's so cool. I always love watching new music reviews on YouTube. It's cool to be part of one. Like I'm watching like it's a show, but then I see myself in it. It's very bizarre. George.
This time they'll talk back to you, Jamie, not like all those other times.
I know.
Where you're,
Why won't you talk to me?
why won't the screen talk?
How they respond. George, what do you got?
All right, my first one is a band called Caligula's Horse. The album is called Charcoal Grace. It's their 6th album. They're out of Brisbane, Australia. They're a quartet, standard configuration, guitar, bass, drums, vocals. I think it's fair to say that as far as the bands that really move the needle, it's the members that move the needle. It's the typical singer and guitar player. The rhythm section is good enough to handle the tricky stuff, but they don't solo. They don't, they're not trying to make a spectacle of themselves. The guitar player is a big chops guy. He used to be on the John Petrucci forum back in the day, and he's a guy that's busy with his technique, but he's tasty, real tasty. The singer is he's kind of unique. He can do like the dreamy sections really well. He's got kind of a mellow, like Maynard James Keenan vibe on those parts, but then when they go heavy, he can handle the belting too. He's got a particularly good handle on melodies as well. I think a lot of their songwriting rides on his ability to craft melodies that stick with you. Musically, it's prog metal, but like Steven said, they're not like soloists. They're not, there's not long passages of shredding. It's more about songs. They do light and dark a lot. There's their heavy stuff tends to be, they do a lot of genty stuff. They don't go overboard with it, but they do touch on the guitar player with a lot of head bobbing riffs. I just saw them last week today, actually. And they're the kind of riffs that the whole crowd is jumping up and down and head bobbing real well. And then they go into a lot of their songs have mellow passages, and the singer Jim Gray, he excels on those passages. Really emotional voice. As far as the album goes, the first track, this print is so small. The first track's a 10-minute tune, kind of a builder. It's one of my favorite tracks on here. That and the second track, Golem, which was the first video single. That's more of what I was talking about, where that one's a real head bobber. Good vocal melody, great solo. The guy's a great soloist. If you appreciate a good guitar solo, you're gonna like him. Then comes this middle section where they have 4 tracks that they're enclosing in the title track suite, Charcoal Grace. And they're kind of playing it half-assed because on the back of the CD, they have it listed as one song that's 24 minutes, but all the track indices, they're all split up separately. So your mileage may vary. If you have it for a while, if you're like me, when they do that shit, you'll come to take it as a big piece, or you'll come to take it as separate songs. I take it as separate songs To me, it doesn't sound like one big song. Connected thematically, that's it. Couple of those tunes are real good. There's one in there though, it's like a 3.5 minute, just the singer and the guitar player tune. That one's a little bit dull. When they come out of that, they go into a more traditional ballad called Sales. That one's really good. Mr. Ferraro would call that sublime. There's like a Pink Floyd-y part where he doubles the chorus. It just sounds massive. Then they go into the second single from the record, The Storm Chaser. They've done a real nice production video for that one, so you can look it up on YouTube. That's a little bit on the soft side with the heavier verses. I mean, the heavier choruses. They kind of like to do the soft verse, heavy chorus thing. And it closes with a 12-minute epic called Mute, which they close the show with also. That's a real traditional epic. They take you through many sections. You know, it starts out acoustic-y and builds up. Heavy stuff in the middle. I mean, it's a real good closer. Where it sits in their catalog for people that are familiar with them, I don't know that it's standout, but it also doesn't falter. It's kind of another good record from them if you're familiar with their stuff.
How would
They
you rate it, buddy?
Yeah, I was thinking it's better. It's definitely at least a 4, but I think it's a little better. But yet I don't think it's a 4.5. So I'll 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 be a wuss and go 4.25 because I think it does need to be. It is better than good, but I don't know that it's great. So I put it right at a 4.25.
Right on.
Yeah, I think that I've heard that album too, and I think you're absolutely spot on with that. It is really good, and it's got immediate parts, and I would suggest that some of it is more of a kind of grower in sections as well. I kind of started off thinking it was a solid 4. I can't quite get it to the 4.5, but I'm maybe like 4.45. It's getting there. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely one of the best albums of the year so far. I would suggest that I've heard anyway. And it's interesting to see their journey because they've kind of moved from one of those bands that you kind of knew, but nobody was talking about them. They've managed over the past couple of albums to kind of move right to the forefront. And I think it's beginning to be quite easy to hear why. They're really consistent. I haven't seen them live, unfortunately, but I know that you really rated them when you saw them, George. So that obviously helps too.
The first 2 albums were indie Australian releases, and then they got picked up by Inside Out. And ever since then, they're kind of one of the bigger prog metal bands, more visible bands, of the newer fold of prog metal bands, excluding the Dream Theaters and Symphony X's. It's probably like Haken, Leprous, and then them. It seems like.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much spot on. And sound wise, there's kind of a little genre all of its own kind of starting as well, because we say prog, but it's not, as you say, it's prog metal, but it's not Dream Theater. They are kind of starting to do their own thing. It's impressive.
My second one is a band called DGM from Italy. This album's called Life. It's their 11th album. Kind of an interesting the genesis and where the name is at today. The DGM stands for the first initials of 3 of the guys. And this is a band that the original lineup Nazis are not going to be happy with because there are no original members left. As of 2007, all the original members were gone. The last guy of the original lineup that was left was the guitar player, Diego Reali. And he gave his blessing for the band to go on without him and use the name and just pick up, And for all those guys that don't like bands without original members, I hate to tell you, that's when this band got really good. When all those guys were gone, they were okay before, a solid band, you'd listen to them, but they took a step up with all these new guys. The guitar player, Simone Molaroni, and the keyboard player, Emmanuel Casali, they do the trade-off thing, and they do it really well. I would compare them to the Symphony X guys very favorably. Molaroni is an engineer as well. He engineers a lot of stuff. He engineered the Michael Romeo disc, so he's well aware of the whole Symphony X thing. They had Russell Allen guesting on a song on one of their albums. So they've kind of been linked with that band. Do they really sound like them? Some of the riff writing, yeah, but they've kind of evolved. They've incorporated a lot of melodic metal. The singer Mark Basile, he's got a what you would call a commercial voice. Like he would have been in maybe he might have been in a hair band back in the day. So he's got one of those sweet voices, melodies crafted like that. There's still power metal in their sound. The prog has been pared down a little bit. I would say, other than occasional odd meter bits and the shredding, there's you could a person that didn't like prog could still like DGM, I think, just by their driving songs and the singer's melodies. He's got a good voice and his melodies definitely stick with you. Um, the first two tracks on here have been videos. Unravel the Sorrow with the opener was kind of was the first one. That's kind of one of the more melodic metal kind of tunes. And then To the Core was the second video, and that is more like a Symphony X kind of style thing, but they never totally sound like Symphony X because of the difference in the singers. This guy's sweeter sounding, more melodic, where Russell Allen's kind of trying to scare you. I mean, he's got the ogre voice, the Dio voice. So you'll never consider them a Symphony X clone, but if you like Symphony X, chances are you probably will like DGM. There's an instrumental on here that actually is one of the least effective tracks on here, I would say, which kind of surprised me. The rest of it, though, is kind of like good tunes. I will say that if I had a beef with this album, is it does get a little amalgamous. There's 10 songs, and they kind of playing back and forth between the more powery songs and the more melodic songs, which is good, because if they didn't do that, it would highlight the sameness of some of the songs. But I mean, when I'm listening to it, I am enjoying myself, so I really can't give it any. I gotta go 4 stars with this one. I would say mid-range in their era with this band, kind of a mid-range album for them. If you know the older stuff, it's not as good as Reason, it's not as good as Frame, but it's right up there with the rest of them.
All right.
So
Cool. All right. It's on to me, I guess. Well, for those of you who miss, it's all about the fuzz. I'm going to bring a little fuzz into the talk and the reviews. I'm going to go with a band. This came out January 12th, and this band is from Italy as well. Like, did you say DGM's from Italy?
mhm.
And I think every time you say Italy on here, you got to go Sal, right? Don't you got to do that or something?
Yeah.
Sal, do you know these guys? These guys are called the Clamps, and they got the psycho thing there on the cover. Heavy Psych Sounds, 35-minute record. It's their third album. The singer's kind of gruff. He's not death metal or anything. He's somewhere between Matt Pike of Fire on High and Lamie, maybe closer to Lamie. It's high octane, fast stoner rock. It's not beating around the bush. It's not trying to be something it's not. It's not reinventing the wheel, but it's played well. It's a fun party record. Mega Mouth is the first song on it, and it's an instrumental, which is kind of weird. Instrumental started off. And then 49 is first song with vocals, and when you hear it, you know exactly what you're getting for the rest of the record. Why are you giving dirty looks, Davey?
The album cover, I don't think I've ever seen a bigger rip-off in my life of a Cramps record than calling yourself the Clamps and looking like that. That is just
Yeah,
a
the logo's
massive
not
rip-off
far
of the
away.
Cramps.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
yes,
logo's-
I guess it would be, wouldn't it? Yes.
But hey, that's as we discuss in the Monsters Den all the time. That's what Italian movies are, isn't it? It's rip-offs, so why not the music?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that album, but now it does look familiar now that you say something. Like I've seen it. Oh well. Well, they're like I said, their music's not reinventing the wheel either, but it's a fun record. They have this a song on here called Bill Jenkins, and I had to Google him because it starts off with like a soundbite from like introducing, maybe it was on television or something, saying Bill Jenkins, he's a race car driver. I guess his name was Bill Grumpy Jenkins, drag racer from the 60s and 70s, and it kind of makes sense because this music, just makes you want to drive fast. I dig it. Club Medusa, it's weird that side one starts with a short instrumental and then you flip it over and side two starts off with a short instrumental. So it's kind of like rinse and repeat. And then you get a bunch of really fast, super fun songs right in a row. So, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. 35, right when you think, it's getting a little samey, it's over. Don't worry, it's over. Um, you know what this band reminds me, they should be playing like a bar with chicken wire fence in front of them. So nobody can like throw shit at them. And they should just be back there banging the hell of their instruments and a bunch of smelly drunks in the bar having a good time, dancing in front of the chicken wire. That's what this band is all about. So if you want to give them a shot, go ahead and go on YouTube, give them a shot. The Clamps, Megamouth. Now, my second choice.
And what did you rate him, buddy?
Oh, and that one. Now you got to understand, I'm stingy with stars. All right, 3 stars is a pretty good album in my book.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give that 3.5 stars because it's fun. It's a fun drinking record. Put that on, grab a 6-pack, pound some beers. You'll have a good time.
Unless you're in recovery from alcoholism, don't listen to that record.
Hell with it. I won't tell anybody.
Well,
Yeah.
that changed the mood, Davey. Thanks for that, just.
Oh, I'm just,
So my next record, I'm so happy that we started this show now. It came out 8, 9, 10 weeks ago. So I still get to talk about it. And I hate that it came out in December last year, because when good records come out in December, they really don't get on your best of list where they should be. And I knew this might be really high. And then as time went on, I've been listening to it nonstop. And I think this band is really, really special. And they're called, I wish they were called Saturn, but they're called Saturna. She doesn't roll off the tongue that well, but it's probably Saturn in Spanish because these guys are from Spain. And if you look at that badass album cover, and the reason it caught my eye when I first saw the album cover is because look how much it looks like my favorite Sword album. Whoa, what's up with that? What's up with the glare too? So the singer, okay, they get labeled as stoner rock, but they're not. They're not. There's not a lot of fuzz going on here. The lead singer is a cross between Chris Cornell. I said on my Let's Get Physical page, which is all about physical media. Come on over if you want to have some fun and talk about physical media on Facebook. He sounds like a little bit like Chris Cornell meets almost like Steve Perry at times. A little bit of huskiness of Lionel Richie, the dude from Screaming Cheetah Wheelies, if you remember that band. And Dewey Bunnell from America. He actually sounds like the guy who's saying Horse with No Name a little bit at times, but he can like belt it too, like Cornell. They actually do a cover of Outshined as a single. But this band, I mean, the Whimsical Selfishness is the first one. It's maybe the most stoner rockish of one of the more stoner rockish songs, but it's so melodic and it's not over the top. It doesn't have melodies like power metal where it just beats you over the head and gets annoying. These melodies lie within the songs. You don't even hear them at first. Maybe on the second listen, you're like, oh, and you're humming along. Never Ending Star, it's just smooth guitar tones. This album goes down so easily. The guitar tone actually reminds me a little bit of like Wishbone Ash, where it has this smoothness going on. Smile rocks hard, but still goes down easy. December Dust, it's December Dust sounds like those acoustic songs hair metal bands were doing in the early 90s, like Mr. Big, with To Be With You and Extreme, More Than Words. I hate those fucking songs. This is in the same realm of that, but so much better. So much better. And then Into the Sun is maybe the most memorable song on the album. I mean, the dude just sings from his toes. And a lot of these stoner rock bands, sometimes they forget to just write memorable songs, you know, that these guys could get played on the radio. I swear to God. Like in 97, I'm talking these guys like they're a collective soul, more or less, you know, a little bit more stoner rockish, I guess. And then side two, not a bad song on this album. Made of Stone is you got the when they do ballads, man. Made of Stone is maybe one of the best ballads I've heard in 20 years. Okay. I know I'm gleaming over this album, and you're thinking maybe I'm just getting carried away and it's not that good. No,
Yeah, Valentine's Day wasn't that long ago. Something.
these guys are that good.
Okay.
So I think it's as good as anything I've heard in my life. I mean, as
But you're not getting
as
carried
this
away.
type of rock and roll is, you know, it. I haven't been taken aback with with an album like I'm taken back with this since 2017, Chemist Hunted, and before that maybe The Sword. So it's one of those landmark albums, I think, where I've had to listen to a lot of music for homework assignments because of this or because of that, and it's pissing me off because I can't listen to this album. You know, it's getting in my way. And then I went back and I grabbed all their albums. Their first two albums have a different lead singer, and they're like a messy cult, kind of, and they're okay. But once they got this lead singer, what's his name? James Vico. And I think the bass player, Rod Tirado, he's been there since the beginning. This singer came on the third album, which it doesn't have a title. It looks like self-titled, but online they call it 3, Lost in Time. Once he got there, man, the music took off. And there's the album before the newest album. This one's called Atlantis. You can't go wrong. And look, I bought the new one on CD too for the car. You can't go wrong with any 3 of these albums at all. When I listen to one, believe it or not, I listen to all of them, and all 3 go by in a heartbeat. I can't believe I just listened to 3 albums in a row. They're that good. They shouldn't be on some shitty label. What label are they on? Spinda Records. These guys should be known, man. They should be known. So if you're watching this, go at least YouTube the new, just give them a shot. And they also have like a online only album. It's called 70s Night Covers, 70s Cover Night. And I printed out the cover they have online and made a CD. But they do National Acrobat by Sabbath, 5 to 1 by The Doors, Your Time Is Gonna Come by Zeppelin, Come Together by the Beatles, Who Knows by Hendrix, and Strange Kind of Woman by Deep Purple. And they do a bang up job on all of it. And they even have a split record. And you would think, oh, you know, they probably just put their shitty songs when they're doing a split record. And Electric Monolith is the other band. And no, these songs are just top notch as much as the other songs. So yeah, check these guys out, Saturna. And I'm gonna send them a message going, hey, I talked pretty well about your record, so send me a damn t-shirt or something. And one more thing, since we're going to talk about real quick, because nobody wants to hear this, we're going to talk about stuff that's not Sea of Tranquility friendly. I like the new Green Day. I mean, I lost track of them after American Idiot. I didn't like the things I heard, so I didn't buy the records. And I always said Green Day records are like milk. They expire fast. You like them, you enjoy them. A month later, you never listen to them again. Maybe that's true with this, but guess what? It's been over a month and I'm still playing it. And it sounds like Dookie, you know? It sounds like old school Green Day. So there's those 3. And real quick, I want to. Can you hear that? Can you hear that? Do you hear that? Don't hear that? You know, YouTube is a weird thing. It doesn't do chimes or that. I'm trying to do a sound effect of a email thing, but it's not coming through for some reason. It's playing on my side because I just wanted to say things I got in my email by some bands. Real quick, TSO Hellcare. They sent me something. I think this is really interesting. Did I write down where these guys are from? Let me see. No, but it's their third album, and these guys are like Nirvana, but more depressing. They're very noisy, but very grungy, and it's cool that in 2024 there's like a grunge band out there. I was listening to them like this sounds like a little like 1997. It's kind of cool. I feel 27 listening to a new grunge album.
I've never listened to Nirvana and thought this is a bit Katrina and the Waves for me. I wish it was a bit more depressing.
Yeah, this is it. Their songwriting is pretty all over the place. When you think it's about to go up, it goes down. When you think it's going to go down, it goes up. But if you want to check out some modern grunge, there you go. TSO Hellcare, and I got Tigers of Opium with Psychodrama, which is kind of like a cross between, they're on heavy psych sounds, but they're more like they got some power pop in there. I hear some Matthew Sweet. They have one song called Diabolique, and I swear to God, there's a part in there where it sounds exactly like I am the modern man, secret, I got a secret. And then Radioactive, they purposely end it with a mimic of the last line of Stairway to Heaven. But this comes out March 1st on Heavy Psych Sounds, and I think it's worth checking out. They call themselves danceable rock and roll, and I'll give that to them. It's danceable if you want to have a good time. That's on YouTube as well. So there's all that. Anyone else got anything else to say? Pete, did we do a good job? Puppet Pete, you got anything to say, Puppet Pete? Puppet Pete smiling now. I think he's happy.
Well, that's nightmare fuel.
I'm coming to
It's like Pete had a baby with Margaret Thatcher or something.
He's smiling.
Well,
All right.
well,
If nobody else,
grimacing maybe.
if nobody else has anything to add,
Yeah,
to
good
anything-
job, John.
Poor
I think
Puppet
he's got
Pete.
on the pineapple.
Well, should I take us out? Ah, Pete's mad up there on George Louise. Oh man,
This was a good first
cheers,
and
everybody.
last episode.
this is the first
review.
past episode of. Anyways, let me say what I gotta say. All right. I practiced all week, guys. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. All together.
All the day.
All the
All
day.
the damn
All
time.
the
Yes.
damn.
You know the next line? Click on the subscribe if you haven't already and hit the notification bell so you're alerted of all the content as we post it. And please do hit the like button. That's easy to forget. That's easy to forget. And we also have a Ko-Fi link below. Don't worry, we don't get any of the money. There's a merch page.
You don't?
No. And
Just us, guys. Just us.
yeah, like, oh, I didn't know. You
Mhm.
bitches. And we also have a Cameo page. And don't worry, if you pay for that, you're gonna get Pete saying happy birthday. You're not gonna get all any of our. Could you imagine paying for Cameo and Pete couldn't make it? Happy birthday, dude. What they're
Like my
back
birthday.
in a second. So yes, and I got it right because I had it all written down. Woo-hoo! So until next show, if there is another show, we will see you and we'll see who the crew is next time. So later, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.